Hi girls, Mr. Gilmore here once again, and today we are continuing on with ratio and proportion. Again, it is the 21st of April. This is our second class on this subject. And what will you need to know to be able to handle this class? Well, we've only done one thing, understanding what a ratio is and what a ratio means. And what will you learn in class today? Well, how to find a proportion from a ratio. So we've done ratio a little bit, and now we're going to do a little bit of proportion. So let's zoom on in here and we'll have a quick look at this kind of situation that I've come up with. Okay, so myself and Mr. O'Leary are dividing up our time for this class. Okay, so myself and Mr. O'Leary, we're sitting down, we're going, okay, we're going to divide up time in terms of how we're spending with this class, and we decide we're going to use a ratio of 3 to 1. So I will take on 3 minutes for every 1 minute Mr. O'Leary does. There's 200 minutes of class time in a week. How much class time do I have? So just think to yourself, okay, if we have a ratio of 3 to 1, how much time is Mr. Gilmore spending with our class? So, if you thought 150 minutes, you'd be correct. Some of you, however, might have thought other numbers, but I'll explain where 150 minutes comes from. Let's look at this ratio here, okay? So we're saying, okay, we've got a ratio of 3 to 1, okay? So for each 1 minute that Mr. O'Leary spends with you, I'll spend 3 minutes with you. So you can see that if we look at that as a ratio, any total, so if we spent a total of 4 minutes with you, so if you had 4 minutes of classroom time a week, it would make sense that I'd take 3 of the minutes and Mr. O'Leary would take 1. So what you need to do when you're kind of breaking these up into their groupings is you need to go, okay, add the two ratios together and divide the total by the addition, and then multiply it by the ratio on either side. Okay, so let's just look at that. Okay, so you've got 200 minutes, and I'm taking 3 out of every 4 of them. So I am taking 3/4 of the time, haven't I? If we have 4 minutes, I take 3 of them, so I'm taking 3/4 of the total time. And Mr. O'Leary is taking 1/4 of the total time. And you can just plug that into your calculator, and that'll end up giving you 150 and 50. So I'll take 150 minutes, Mr. O'Leary will take 50. So what you need to do with any of these things, and what we call this is a proportion. Okay? So you know what a ratio is. You can now find a proportion from a ratio. Now, don't worry if you don't get that straight away. I'm going to go through a few other examples, and just by, force of repeating, you should start to see. Okay, so what we do is we add the two ratios and make the denominator, and then we take the ratio on each side and we make that the numerator. Okay, so let's have a look at another example, and that might help out a little bit more. Okay, so a box of 40 chocolates had milk and dark chocolates in the ratio of 2 to 3. Okay, so for in the box there was always 2 milk chocolates for every 3 dark chocolates. Imagine red is representing milk chocolates, blue is representing dark chocolates. So you've got a 2 to 3 ratio. So you can see here there's 5 of them, can't you? For every 5 milk chocolates, for every 5 chocolates in total, there's 2 milk chocolates, 3 dark chocolates. So again, if we're dealing with 40, we're going, okay, 40 multiplied by 2 divided by 2 plus 3, or as we're just going to call it in this case, 5. And then for each dark chocolate, we're going to go, okay, so for the dark chocolates, we're going to go 40, and we're going to multiply that by 3 dark chocolates for every 5. So multiplied by 3 over 5. Again, if you just plug that into a calculator, you should get a fairly straightforward answer. They will be 16 and 24, if I'm doing that correctly off the top of my head. I'm not using a calculator myself. That's probably a bad move on my part. Let's just go and quickly see if I have a calculator directly at hand. Okay, so let's have a look at another example. Here we're going to look at dividing 714. So we've got 714 elements, like euro. I want to divide it into a ratio of 3 to 4. So, you and a friend have won some money, you decide to divide it up into 3 and 4 parts. So again, we're going to realize 3 plus 4 is 7, isn't it? So 3 plus 4 equals 7. So what we're going to do is we're going to take 714 and we're going to multiply it by 3 over 7 for our left-hand side. And we're going to take the 714 and we're going to multiply it by 4 over 7 on the right-hand side. And that should come out to 306 euro for the first person. And it should come out to 408 for the euro for the second person. So again, we can just plug that into your calculator. Just use a calculator for these. Don't feel like you have to do each and every sum in your head. And that's pretty much finding proportion from a given ratio. What I'm going to look at next is I'm just going to look at, okay, imagine we found one part of the proportions, but we need to find the rest, okay? So here we're saying a prize is divided between A and B in a ratio of 5 to 2, okay? So for each, so 5 to 2, okay? And A has been given 165 euro. How much has B been given? Okay. How would we find this? Well, okay, in order to get this section here, we need to take the total money, okay? So total money multiplied by 5 over 7 is going to equal 165 euro, isn't it? So we can say sum total. And you could call that X, you could call that Y. I'm just going to write down total for now, just because we're not dealing with too many of these. Now, following that, what are we going to do? Well, if the total multiplied by 5 over 7 equals 165, then we know the total is going to equal 165 multiplied by 7 over 5. So what we've done here is we've divided both parts of the, we've multiplied both parts of the equation by 7, we divided both parts of the equation by 5. Or we've kind of just divided by 5 over 7 from both sides, and of course dividing by a fraction is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. Whichever system is easiest for you girls, feel free to use that. And then all we do is we just go, okay, got 165 multiplied by 7 divided by 5. That should end up giving us a total equal to 231. Now I wanted to do one last example like that. So this is probably one of the tougher examples, where what they've done is they've now split into 3 parts rather than into 2 parts. So far we were always looking at, okay, 7 parts, 7, and 4. But now we've got a third ratio, and this is perfectly fine. You can still divide things up in a ratio like this. But all that it's saying is that, okay, now it's being divided into 3 groups rather than 2, but you still add all the values together to get the total out of each segment. So 7 plus 4 plus 1, that will be 12. So if 12 euro was given out, what would happen is the first person A would get €7, the second person B would get €4, and the fourth person would get €1. So what happens when B receives €960? We need to find the total prize fund. So what we know here is the total multiplied by 4, because B is getting 4 out of every 12. It's going to equal €960. Now, I'm going to simplify that a little bit for myself. I can go, wait a second, 4 over 12 is the exact same as 1 over 3, right? So we know the total here is 3 times, or the prize given to B is 1/3 of the total, isn't it? Prize is 1/3 of the total, so all we do here is we just multiply that prize by 3, and we'll end up getting that the total equals €2,880. Okay? So girls, I'm going to give you a bit more work to do on this sort of stuff. Can we go to pages 255 and 256? And can we attempt 1 second? Oops. Questions 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, I'll redraw 15 there, 15, 16, 17, and 19. And as always, girls, some of these questions I have done in this video. So again, if you make a mistake, well, I'll know you haven't watched the video, won't I? Now, feel free to pause at any point, review over any of this stuff. Thank you very much, girls, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.